All right, let's see what we got here. This is the HODL Report Part 2. And let's see if OBS is going to take this stream and do something positive with the stream, or if it is going to put me into a bad situation again. So far, it looks good. Actually, I did do a full reboot. So let's see if this kicks in and does something positive for us here. Let's see, we are live again. So let's see who we get to bounce into the chat. Let's see what we got going on here. Unable to connect to the chat. I should be restreaming. Let me refresh this. Let's see where we're at with everything. Just give it a minute. Going through these technical difficulties. What a pain. So, let's see. There we go. I think I'm popping back in. This is good. Is this how you get? That's right. You know, WB, that was my strategy to begin with. So you get twice the number of thumbs up. And so it's definitely a good strategy. Right? So, other than the annoyance, but the stream health is good. I ran a speed test, and what a pain. I should have 200 megs coming into the house, and it was and the download speed was 0.5. It was like 0.2 on the upload stream. Insane. Our upload stream should be 25. So I went through, I have the Google mesh, and I ran up and I just did a full refresh of the Google mesh, and let's see if that helps. And I bet that somehow Comcast is going to find a way to screw things up here. So we'll find out. Let me give everyone a little chance to pop in. Let me see. Who do we have on that I might have missed before in the stream? Let's see here. Everything's green, so I'm happy with that. All right, we've got Egbertina's back on. Annalisa's on. Good to see you on. WB back on. Gaming Crypto, what's going on? Good to see you here. Let me pop out the chat here. I'm going to pull up the chat now on my phone so we can monitor the stream strength. I get the YouTube. Oh, look at that. Stream health is red again. You believe this? Let's see here. And it's green coming out of OBS. So hopefully it stays positive here. I'm going to spend like 20 minutes just going through stream health. That's enough to get you going here. Let me see here. Let me see if I can get back onto my live stream. Here we are. All right, is that the live one? Nope, that's the original one. Where's the live stream? Now I can't get back to my live stream on here. Let's see. Is that at the end? Nope. All right, well, we'll figure out what goes on here. It's live. Let's see if I can get on there. Okay, so Spanish Fly, hey, glad you're here. Ferdy, well, what's up? Good to see you here. It took them 5 trips to find the source of the RF interference. And I've had Comcast come out so many times, and they just seem to, every time they come out, they seem to make things worse, don't they? They'll always blame inside. I had a guy come in and we rewired the inside of the house, redid all the connections. Then he goes outside and he said, you know what? Let me redo the box out and out next to your house. Redid all of that. Then he came back in and said, you know what? I think it's something further down the line, so we're not going to charge you for everything we just did. But hey, Spanish Fly, glad that you popped in. And unfortunately we lost about 25 minutes here due to technical difficulties. So let me bounce back to where we were before, and let's get into some of the good stuff. So I wanted to go through, and first I want to talk a little bit about the Fed, and it's interesting because there was an article that popped up on the Hill that really made me think about what could potentially be happening at the federal level, and so here we go again. dropout. Nope. OBS is solid. All right, I'm gonna just have to tolerate the way this stream is gonna keep freezing up like this. Let's see. And YouTube is red, and OBS is not. I don't know. This is gonna be. Hopefully this doesn't keep happening throughout. If it does, I'm gonna postpone, and I'm planning on streaming later on tonight. And I'm going to focus on the Token Taxonomy Act. So once we go through Token Taxonomy Act, there's really a significant amount of updates with the Token Taxonomy Act. And so I was really hoping to get a chance to focus on just the Token Taxonomy Act on a stream later this evening. So Mike Smith, hey, glad to see you on from the UK. So if you guys, if the audio seems to be cutting out at all, let me know. If it's just video cutting out, you know, I can deal with that. But if it's audio cutting out, then it's really going to mess things up here. So just let me know in the stream. If the audio cuts out, then we might have to table this stream for today. But we'll see how that goes. So I'll look in the stream and see what you guys are saying. So let me pull. I'm going to pull up this interesting article that came in, and this was on the Hill. Now we can obviously read into it and try to make a determination on what the Federal Reserve may or may not be doing. However, the one thing is that we know that the Federal Reserve for sure is observing what's happening within the digital asset space, within the crypto space. So Annalise, yeah, thanks for that. A little on the audio. Hopefully we're back in it. I'm able to monitor a little bit here on my phone too, watching the stream. So so there's this article that came out. What's the date on this? It was just like a day or two ago, and I thought it was so poignant with what's happening right now. And this was and the title of this article: "The Federal Reserve Overreaches Again." And so there we go. Okay. So I'm just turning on my phone. This is really getting to me. You know, I'm sure watching it makes it more frustrating as well. Sorry about that, guys. I really appreciate you guys hanging in there, going through this. The playback might be tough, but May 10th. So yeah, oh, this was for sure yesterday. Okay. So Federal Reserve overreaches again. This was on thehill.com. You know what I'm going to do? Let me see. I'm afraid to mess with things when they're working, but I'm going to do this anyways. I'm going to transition this over. Here we go. All right. So this is thehill.com. Now, when we go through this, and the reason why I thought this article was interesting, again, the Federal Reserve overreaches again. And the point with this article was really focused on real-time payment. So real-time payments. Look at this. This is why we need to get rid of ads. Okay, so real-time payment. Now we see obviously with what RippleNet is doing, we're able to accomplish not just transparency, but pretty near real-time cross-border transfer of funds. And here we also and I started doing some research. I've been planning this video for a while. Hopefully, eventually, I'll get this video out with the regarding the Fed Wire, which is a Federal Reserve cross-border payment solution that had been pretty much competing at a level with SWIFT, and they do a huge amount of transaction on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Now, the Federal Reserve in this scenario, now obviously having real-time payment transaction is critical from many different perspectives. Real-time payment transaction is important for a consumer. It's important from a B2B perspective. It's important from a B2C perspective. And it can be very important from a P2P perspective. When we talk about real-time payment, this can exist in many different forms. And so, oh, yeah, Annalise, thanks for that. So think about real-time payment in in real estate. Think about real-time payment in a business transaction. Think about real-time payment as to what it could mean for a small business getting funds. A lot of small businesses will operate on a buy and sell, but that, if they have a customer, the customer buys something, they might have to run out and contact their manufacturer for that product. And not every business operates in a terms structure, and many of the manufacturers don't allow for terms and will do everything ship on payment. And so for a business to receive real-time transfer of payment in funds from their customer is really a big deal. Now, what we're talking about in this scenario is the Federal Reserve, according to this article, overreaching and stepping into a space that is really occupied and should be occupied by the private sector. Now, a whole different conversation is that the Federal Reserve is not a government entity, but the Federal Reserve is made up of private banks. But with individuals that sit on the board of the Federal Reserve that are there to manage or oversee our economic trends and movement. And so in this scenario, the point of this article is the Federal Reserve overreaching and stepping into a space that the private sector should be. Now, the question that I have in this scenario is, what is the Federal Reserve actually thinking about when they're anticipating creating this clearinghouse that they'll allow for and accommodate real-time payment? Now, with the real-time payment structure, somebody's floating the payment at some point during that process. So the question here then becomes, if the Federal Reserve is planning on getting into the real-time payment space, what exactly does that look like? Who are they engaging in this process to develop and build out the technology to step into a space to make that happen? Now, in this article, I thought it was really interesting, and so there were really a couple points that were brought up throughout the conversation or the write-up here, and one of the points. Let me switch back over here so you guys don't have to look at my notes if I pull them up here as I pull through this. So there are really two primary points that I thought about as I was reading this. Number one is, why is the Federal Reserve, why are they considering to get into the payment space to begin with? Are they falling behind in control over finances, over economics? And do they see an expansion of digital assets as a direct threat? So I guess that's multiple questions in one, but it kind of this continuous thought process. So why is the Federal Reserve? Why do they want to get into the payment space and the clearinghouse for real-time payment settlement? Obviously, there's a financial gain. There's money to be had. Obviously, there's control. Obviously, you stand out in the space. They're taking it to the point where they're potentially competing against the private sector. Now, the question then we can really highlight, does the Federal Reserve believe that they're falling behind and falling behind due to the expansion of digital assets as a direct threat to what the Federal Reserve does? So if the Federal Reserve can dictate and control our monetary system, we already see, that there's definitely some conflict, some tension between the Federal Reserve and the President of the United States right now when it comes to economic growth. The Federal Reserve is going to do things or can do things to potentially disrupt the economy. So we saw that recently where they incrementally began to increase interest rates. Now the economy hasn't reached a point where it's in a purely healthy state. Although our economy has been growing significantly in the United States over the past couple years, it's still not in a place of where you could consider it to be 100% stable. And so at the same time as the Federal Reserve is impacting the economy with an increase in interest rates, we saw that reverberate through the rest of the economy as interest rates on mortgages and interest rates on car loans and interest rates on large capital equipment purchases. All of that began to go up, which from a mainstream perspective and a business perspective, you start to see a consumer tendency towards purchases. You started seeing a negative perspective and a decrease. And so it was going to have a negative reverberation throughout the entire economy. So they put an immediate hold on the increase of interest rates. Now, at the same point, we are seeing an expansion of the digital asset space. We're seeing what the SEC, we're seeing the central banks throughout the world, but we're seeing the SEC in the U.S. We're looking for regulatory clarity through Congress. And then you have this Federal Reserve entity that's watching all of these things that are transpiring. Obviously, the Federal Reserve is very cognizant of what's happening with Ripple, what's happening with RippleNet. Swift is very cognizant of it. The fact that the Federal Reserve has dabbled with the FedWire as a direct potential competitor, although with much larger transfers of money. So that's part of their seamless process. Now the question then is, again, do they see the digital asset space as a direct threat to their I don't want to say it to their kingdom, but basically the Federal Reserve has sat on the throne of the economy for a long time, being able to control and manipulate it as they see fit with some interaction. And then you have the whole question as to what the president in the United States talks about when he talks about the swamp, and then you have the lobbyists, and you have the banking lobbyists, and you have all these different elements within the political structure. And then you have this Federal Reserve that can manipulate the interest rates up or down and have a desired outcome of the economy, maybe based on what they foresee. But now you see the direct counterbalance to that, which is the growth within the digital asset space. You see XRP, and it's interesting because I think to Chip's video the other day when he was talking about when he was at the crypto cafe, and the guy said, well, XRP is the banker's coin. Well, you know what? That's okay for right now. So let it be the banker's coin, because what does that really mean? And through a little bit of misinformation and misunderstanding of what XRP is, there is a little bit of reality because through RippleNet and XRapid, it is being utilized by banks to provide for cross-border payment solutions. And there's nothing wrong with that. So yes, that is a part of it, but that's not all of it. XRP is utilized by banks. Hey, you know what? Bitcoin isn't being utilized by banks. So there's nothing wrong with XRP being a banker's coin. If that's their coin of choice, so be it. Now the question then becomes, is the Federal Reserve, again, are they seeing a direct threat? And, are they doing anything at this point to adopt and be part of the digital asset growth? So we see within the banking industry as much FUD as you want to see, whether it was from Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, or others, and then come to find out that they're actually fully involved and engaged in this digital asset space and launching their own coin, the JPM coin. So could it stand to reason that the Federal Reserve is looking to engage in digital assets? So, Farshad, back at the gym, awesome. This is the kind of stuff you want to listen to while you're working out. Man, I might ruin your workout. I'm not sure. So again, so there's some real in-depth thought process to think about when it comes to the Federal Reserve and the possibility now that if they see the digital asset as a direct threat, they're trying to engage in real-time payment. And so if they're trying to engage in real-time payment, what backbone are they going to create or develop in order to support real-time payment? So if they want to build real-time payment on the old structure, and we have real-time payment being developed on the new structure through blockchain and digital asset, the Federal Reserve is going to lose that battle. The only weapon that they have, and D&I talks a lot about the weaponization. It talks about the weaponization of economics. And so in this scenario, can the Federal Reserve weaponize our economy, the U.S. economy, against a digital asset? Is that even possible, or is it a losing battle? You know, obviously, it definitely looks like it would be a losing battle. So Black Panther, yeah, are they partnering with Ripple? You know, it seems that why wouldn't they partner with Ripple? It makes sense, especially when we look at the expansion. DNI talks about the IMF. Let's focus in the United States. And to me, it stands to reason that if they're going to be getting into a real-time payment settlement or a clearinghouse scenario, then they would want to use the digital asset in a blockchain-derived solution that has proven to be compatible with banking. And so I don't see that the Federal Reserve would call on JPM because they still, as the Federal Reserve, as a conglomerate of different banking families that control the Federal Reserve, why would they want to put control into the hands of one entity? They would want to use and be reliant on a non-entity, which would be XRP, that really at a point where nobody controls it. And so I think from that perspective, that is a pretty amazing thought process to go down, whether it's factual or not. But I think time will tell when things do come out in public. Now, we could go through a period of years without knowing, just as we saw, again, Fidelity, E-Trade. No, the list goes on and on of those that were skeptical, they didn't want to get involved in, they weren't doing anything, and then all of a sudden now, oh, by the way, NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, Fidelity, E-Trade, JP Morgan, and the list goes on and on, are all somehow, you know, all of a sudden engaging in the investment in digital asset and creating their own exchanges. So that doesn't happen overnight. That kind of planning and structure and testing and sandboxing and whatever, that takes, you know, months and months, if not a couple years to develop. So obviously a lot of the negativity will cover up reality. So be able to obscure it. Oh, for Shad, thanks again for another $4.99. That's awesome, man. I thought you were supposed to be working out. All right. So that's, you know, that's really an interesting thought process, and I think it would be something to keep our eye on to see what happens. Now, one of the other points that were brought up in this article is that we have the private real-time payment settlement space, and then you have the Federal Reserve. Now, just like with the JPM coin that seems to be in a walled environment, even JPM, and there was another article I meant to pull up and bring into this conversation, but even JP Morgan is already restructuring the way their solution works because they probably saw the inadequacies of it. Now, within that thought process, if JPM is in a walled environment where it can only be utilized within its own network, then you need to drop those walls. Now, if you drop the walls, you still have the limitation that another banking entity is not going to want to use the other bank's digital assets. So you still need a corridor. You still need a bridge currency. So if we are able to establish that bridge currency, which currency is that going to be? Obviously, the only one that has been tried and true and tested at this point is XRP through the XRP ledger. So I think that really validates a lot of this thought process. Now, again, so if you have the private real-time settlement and then you have the Federal Reserve real-time settlement, how is there a transaction? And in the article they brought up, it's like having two different internets. that are being developed at the same time, and you can't exist that way. So you need to be able to tie them together. You can't have websites over here and websites over here and not be. And if you're, if you want to get into the internet A, but you're in internet B, and there's no way to do it, you can't have two structures like that unless you have an in-house internet where you only want a certain subset of people to have access to it, and you don't want anybody in group B to have access to it. Obviously, you have walls, but if you need interaction, because that's how business is done, you need to have real-time settlement regardless. So you need to have a bridge. So if that bridge between the Federal Reserve and the private sector, then you need to whatever that bridge currency is going to be. Again, in my opinion, it falls back on XRP. So time will tell. Hard to say. Yeah, exactly. WB. You can't have silos. Silos will not help the economy. Could you imagine right now if every country had a silo around it where you couldn't have a transaction of currency, and maybe we had to ship fiat currency, or we had to ship gold to another country in order to facilitate trade? It would be so impractical that what would our global economy look like? It wouldn't. So. To me, again, what's going on with the Federal Reserve has digital asset written all over it, whether it's intended or not intended. I think that if they're not involved in digital asset and they're attempting to develop the real-time settlement without a blockchain and without digital asset, they're going to find that within a very short period of time, they're going to be antiquated, and they're going to be in a race against time to catch up. So I don't believe that these individuals, as we saw again, if we want to use JP Morgan as an example, JP Morgan badmouthed the digital asset space, badmouthed the concept of a Bitcoin or et cetera, or an XRP, yet at the exact same time that he's badmouthing it, JP Morgan is developing their own. So again, time will tell. I think we need to be very cognizant of what goes on. Now, with all of these things that are happening around us, we have to see that mainstream is really preparing for the inevitable transition. And so when we talk about the mainstream transition, think about Visa, think about MasterCard, think about American Express. It doesn't get more mainstream than that, because this is how pretty much, I don't know what the percentage is. Let's say 95% of Americans, and maybe around the world, I don't know what the exact percentage is. It's just a large percentage of the world. Let's say that. Let's not stick a number to it, because I don't know what the number is. I didn't look it up. But a large percentage of transactions are credit card driven. Now, a credit card purchase is not a real-time settlement. It's a promissory. It's basically still a digital promissory note of payment. However, the transfer goes over to the bank, and the fact that a retail outlet will accept our payment, obviously the transactions can happen a lot faster. We'll get notified, but we're not paying our bill, and basically the credit issuer is promising the retail outlet that they will be sending money over, whatever that time lag might be, but that's the promise. And being that Visa and MasterCard, American Express are reputable organizations, as a business you accept them. Now, to accept that credit card transaction, you're also paying a hefty fee of up to 3%. As a business receiving funding. That 3% can cut significantly into a store's profit on a product, considering that some profit margins can be as low as 10%. They can be high as 30%, and some obviously have much bigger markups, 50%, 100%, depending on the products. Obviously, if you get a lot of these products coming in from China that are cheaply made and you're purchasing them at a low price point, they have pretty large markups. However, still paying 3% on that money can definitely be detrimental and can have a big impact on your bottom line. So we have to take that into consideration, that that Visa, MasterCard, American Express has become our routine mechanism of payment, of transaction. So it's very significant at this point that Visa has purchased Earthport. So let me just take a second here. Just want to say what's up to Crypto Bird Dog. Thanks for joining in. Glad that you were able to take some time this morning and pop on. I'm going to go a little bit past 9 o'clock only because I ended up getting started late due to the typical Saturday morning technical difficulties. So are you watching? Welcome. Glad to see you here. Leonard Gonzalez, what's up? Anybody holding XRP will have a big smile on their face very soon. The market is trending up significantly right now. Leonard, if they ban crypto, XRP and other coins will massively dump. These conversations will be insignificant at that point. If they ban crypto, I think it's a little bit late at this point for them to do that. The conversations at the government level are not talking about banning crypto from the major sense. And I believe that when we see the trend of where the digital asset space is going, when we see the trend of where blockchain is going, these large corporations would not be buying into and developing platforms if there was a plan of banning crypto. It's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. It doesn't happen like that. I think if we would have gone back a number of years, if you want to look at maybe 2010, 2011, 2012, maybe even 2013 timeframe, they might have had an opportunity to attempt to crush it. But I don't see that even then. Take a look at what's going on in China. China has attempted to stop the trade of digital asset, and it's almost impossible for them to do that. Now, if you get caught, maybe there can be other repercussion, but how can they catch you unless they monitor, everything that you do, which they can do when they can ban a Facebook or else. But even in India, people are finding ways to hold wallets and transfer currency. Now, if the government is going to shut down the digital asset exchanges, they're going to slow down the growth of that space in India. But if India wants to develop as an economy on the world stage, they're going to have to adopt digital assets. They're going to have to get in with what's happening with the world. And now we even see some of the rails that were announced, a week or two ago, that even in India, they're beginning to utilize the X current for transfer of money. So if that's the case, it doesn't take much to start, indirectly or directly utilize blockchain and directly or indirectly utilize digital assets. So there's a lot of great points here, but Leonard, that's what you need to focus in on. That as an overall, look at the bigger picture. Digital assets are not going to be banned if you see governments passing laws right now to adopt them. It just isn't going to happen. It's already too late. Again, the conversation would have been a lot different right now if that were the case. So, and that's why it's so significant to look at what everybody is doing. Now, there's so much happening in government in the United States right now, conversation-wise, as it relates to the Token Taxonomy Act, as it relates to digital assets. Switzerland has passed some significant rulings and laws. Thailand has passed some real significant rules and laws as it pertains to digital assets. So this is where we see the direction of this space going. We see the growth, and the growth is happening exponentially at this point. So Leonard, look at what happens on a much larger scale. Now, what you can say is that many of these blockchain-based digital asset programs or companies or whatever they might be, many of them might not be around 5 years from now. Many of them, the technologies that they may develop may be assimilated and bought out by other companies, as you see a consolidation within the marketplace. And then you see the leaders that kind of come forward, similar to Google, similar to Amazon. I mean, think back to the early days of the internet, and we had Earthlink. I'm trying to think of some of the browsers outside of the Microsoft browser, but you started to see we had Firefox. I don't know. I can't think of all the different browsers that we had, but then we had, from a search engine perspective, you had Jeeves, you had Yahoo, which still is around. We used to have AOL, and obviously Google pretty much crushed everybody. You had Bing, which is still, I'm not even sure if that's still, I think it's still around. But they're almost insignificant at this point from a search platform perspective, because Google beat them. But now we're going to see a shift even in this space, because we're starting to see Brave beat out Chrome, which is pretty massive if you think about that. Brave, which was developed by the same guys who developed Firefox. But we're starting to see a shift in the marketplace. We're starting to see an adoption of Coil, an adoption of digital asset from a micropayment perspective. So it's too late. The government is not going to ban digital assets, and if they try to ban it, you're going to see most likely a circumvention of those regulation. Now, they don't want to push digital assets into the black market either, and that has been the biggest fear of these government entities, is that this is how digital assets are being utilized to circumvent laws and being used for the purchase of, or being used for nefarious purpose, which is also incorrect, as it leaves a trail. And so I believe also we're going to begin seeing, a big movement in that direction. So now let me see here. Let me just bounce in here again. It's too late. Are you watching? You can't stop it now. I know there's a bit of a lag between what I'm saying and some of the comments being posted. Must get in the space to stay profitable. Level playing field, Anders. Yep, I think we're definitely seeing the development of a level playing field across the board. Even Trump talked about a level playing field, and that goes. And that's really important. So trade imbalances, when we talk about a level playing field, even in these trade negotiations with China, are we going to suffer in the United States as a potential? Are we going to suffer as a potential due to any of these tariffs that are placed on China? In the short term, we may suffer a little bit, but at the same point, are we really that happy with the type of product that's being pushed out of China? I'm not. I do everything I can to not buy Chinese product, and the biggest problem that we have with China is that they steal property, they steal patents. They steal trademarks. They steal everything, and you'll have, let's say, as an example, Nike manufacturing real product here, and then out the back door is all the fake stuff that's really Nike product, but they put a small little imperfection modification somewhere, and they shoot it out the back door. And this has been going on for years and years and years. Now, what kind of a detrimental impact does that have on the global economy, sitting here in the United States, out of Europe? Now, this goes back a number of years, but I was on a trip in Italy, and this was really a big eye-opener for me. And I was asking them about their textile industry, and they said that Italy was struggling. Their textile industry, which is what they were known for, was suffering because of China, and many of the product in Italy were now manufactured in China. So this is where we see huge issues. And so if the public want to walk around with their eyes covered and they don't want to see what's happening, they don't want to believe the reality on the ground, they want to read some headlines and they say, oh, what's happening right now with these tariffs against China are bad and we're picking on China. You know what? China is a large economic force to be reckoned with that doesn't play by the rules. And at the same time, in the U.S. or in Europe or elsewhere that have given some leniency in trade and in trade, providing basically free trade, providing limited taxation or tariff on these products coming in. Yet when we export into China, they place heavy tariffs on our products. Market, we have to look at this as a bigger picture, and the reason why I'm going down this path is because this is really significant to the overall picture of where our economy is going, and why it's so important to develop and build in transparency into this process. Because in the U.S. we're very most things are very visible, and in China not so much. Obviously, you have a dual political structure in China. You have the communist government that controls, and then you have the capitalist economy that's in conflict with the communist government. And in the early years, when they were attempting to develop their economy, the government would pull back, negatively impacting their people because they didn't want their people to become wealthy. Finally, when they pulled off a lot of the restriction, the middle class boomed over in China. And then the wealthy class exploded over in China. And now they have money. They don't know what to do with their money. The one thing that we do know is that in China, they don't want to buy their own product. And to an exception, there are some products developed in China that we'll never have anywhere else in the world. But for the most part, in China, they want American-made cars. They want a Mustang more so than a BMW or a Mercedes. They want that American-made car because that is a symbol of success in China. Now, to import our product over to China, they place heavy tariffs on those products, as you'll see in many other countries where you could have 50%, 100%, 120% taxation on a car. So imagine a car that costs $30,000 in the United States. You go over to another country where they have 100% or 120% tax. That same $30,000 car can cost $60,000 or $70,000. So that's kind of insane. Now, the reason why I want to really focus in on all of this and why it's so important is because as we start seeing these interactions within government, as we start seeing these interactions within the economic space in general, we need transparency. We need also to have, as we were talking about, a level playing field. That's how this all started. So a level playing field in terms of free trade. Let's have everybody on a similar level. We can then make an exception to certain countries that need support and they need to export. We don't want to bombard everybody with imports. They need to develop their local economy so they can buy more product. But when you take a rogue actor like a China that is doing everything they can to manipulate their own economy to make their exports look better and impede import of product, that doesn't work. Now, in a digital asset sense, when you start building a streamlined economy and you're allowing others within other countries to develop and become part of the world economy, and you have smaller businesses in Africa or parts of Asia or in the impoverished areas of India that can become part of the global economy, that has huge significance to it. The other part of this is that you can't do trade easily with a country that manipulates their currency or has currency that has huge fluctuation. So So that's definitely impactful. I think about, some of the times I was doing business with India, and we'd wait, for months and months and months, and they would say, no, our the rupee right now just isn't favorable, and if we're going to buy that product from you, it's now going to cost us $2,000 or $3,000 more due to the exchange rate, and we can't sell the product for $2,000 or $3,000 more. We can't change our pricing, so we can't buy the product, and our customers are going to go without. And so we'd wait for months. So that's what happens when you're in an environment when you don't have a stable currency. And the Chinese yuan, renminbi, whatever you want to call it, is not necessarily stable, and they definitely manipulate it to their own benefit. So those are some of the issues that need to be addressed on the global stage, and can be addressed when we start utilizing digital asset for a transaction. The countries can no longer manipulate their currency. Now everybody's going to be on a level playing field, and doing so relatively fairly. So I think that's what is significant. Now, at the same point, those technologies can help boost up the domestic economies, and so that's really significant. I think that's really, really impressive. So let me just take a stop here. I'm going to go back and recognize some people that came in, look at some more comments. Then we're going to talk a little bit, and I didn't even get into really getting into Visa and the Earthport purchase. We talked about why it's significant, but maybe that's enough. And then I want to talk a little bit about Brad Sherman, and then I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an update on the Token Taxonomy Act. I got so much information on it, and I'm preparing a video, or actually I'm going to go a live stream tonight only to talk about Token Taxonomy Act and really engage with everybody on that topic. It's so critical right now. So let me look. I wanted to go back here because WB, Chinese drywall with radioactive, what is that, strontium in it. Bad news. Baby formula that's poisoned, cheap product. You look at clothes, you know what? It used to be you could go get a brand name, whatever it was, and it would be quality. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait a minute. Everybody wants this brand name. And, we sell it for $100 and whatever it costs, made in Italy or Spain or the US. But if we go to China, we can actually cut the quality down because people are still going to buy the product because of the logo on it. And then if you want the real stuff, we're gonna double the price of it. So you saw that with shoes. You used to get Italian shoes for $100, $130, whatever, decent Italian shoes. Now, if you want good quality Italian-made shoes, you're gonna pay $400, $500, $600, and the rest of it's made in China, and they decrease the quality, which is just absolute crap. So that to me says a lot. Hang on. I got to go back up. There were so many great comments here. Let me see. The Shermanator. The Shermanator. That guy's. Sherman is the recipient of big bank campaign donations. Crypto Bird Dog. Exactly. That is definitely accurate. And so there was some statement that one of his biggest ones is a credit card processing entity. So that says a lot. He's just a subject to his lobbyists. That's all. He's in California. He did propose a bill outlawing cryptocurrencies in the Financial Services Committee, but I think he is going to be silenced based on what you guys, based on the information that I can share with you guys on the Token Taxonomy Act. His voice is relatively insignificant. Let's see, Leonard. We always have VPNs if they do. But I hear what you're saying. Okay, I appreciate that. I know these comments from a while ago. I was kind of on a tangent, so I'm kind of going back. Are you watching? Yeah, Sherman he's irrelevant. Whatever he says, completely irrelevant. Let me see. Still want to call and tell him what a jackass he is. You can do it. Go ahead and send it out over Twitter. Be funny. Let's see. It would destroy all the things around it. Sherman's latest contributor is a payment processor. Yep, exactly. So that's kind of going back what we just said. You're talking about the radioactive Chinese drywall. It would damage anything near it. Yep, exactly. People who don't understand tech fear it. If they fear it, they want to ban it. Educating Mr. Sherman would be beneficial. yeah, Kevin, you know what? I mean, anything that we can do to educate him if he's willing to be educated. So the question then becomes his allegiance. Is his allegiance to his people, meaning to the people who voted him in, or is his allegiance to his lobbyists that are going to get him reelected? That's, to me, is the biggest concern. So if he has the best intent for the people in his district, that means that he can be educated. If his intent is to stay in Congress, now this guy has been in Congress since 1997. 1997. So for what? What is that? 22 years? Is that 22 years? Yes. So for way too long. You know, so for 22 years he sat in Congress. What in the hell has he accomplished in the 22 years that he's been there other than enriching himself and taking money from lobbyists and then coming out with misinformation, lack of knowledge on a topic, bad-mouthing a topic, trying to propose a bill on something he doesn't understand, all to appease his lobbyists. So I'm not mentioning his party affiliation here, but this guy is definitely, acting with ill intent based on those who fund his campaign. He's going into 2020. He needs to get reelected, and that's all he cares about. Let's put it at that. If he can prove otherwise, then we can say, you know what, we'll work with you and let's see what we can do to educate you. But until he can prove otherwise, that he's not trying to fill his pockets with gold and only appease his lobbyists, again, so he can get reelected, then it's extremely difficult to educate someone like that. But Kevin, I agree wholeheartedly that the better approach would be to educate these people in Congress to the technology. Now, that brings up the point that I'm going to talk about later when we talk about the Token Taxonomy Act in more detail, because I'm proposing to actually put together a series of videos to where we can actually reach out and educate many within the space in Congress. It's so important that they do understand what they're voting on. It's important that they see the significance of this technology. Now, I have to say that Congressman Warren Davidson and Congressman Darren Soto have really done an outstanding job to bring attention to blockchain and digital assets in Congress, and there's a lot going on due to what their accomplishments have been. Now, hey, Larry, welcome to the show. Glad to see you on Gaming Crypto. Again, I'm glad that you made it in here. I'm glad that you're commenting. I'm glad that I'm seeing a lot of good engagement from everyone. Kevin Cranfield, I'm not sure if you're new to the channel, if you've watched before. I don't know that I've seen your comments. I'm really glad that you're participating in the conversation. And B1 as well. Anyone that's in here, that if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and subscribe. And we do live stream Monday evenings at 10, Wednesday at 10. This is Eastern Standard Time, and Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Tonight, I'm going to be doing a live stream specifically on Token Taxonomy Act. So let me give you guys a little bit of a taste of what's happening with the Token Taxonomy Act. And so, number one, the Token Taxonomy Act is not dead on arrival, sitting in the Financial Services Committee. Number two, Maxine Waters, who is the chair of the Financial Services Committee, is amicable and is open to actually facilitating, pushing, and passing the Token Taxonomy Act through the Financial Services Committee onto getting a vote within Congress. However, she has done so with some stipulation, which we'll get into more detail on the show later this evening. But part of the stipulation is that some of the language is actually removed out of the Token Taxonomy Act, and that another Democrat is a major co-sponsor to the bill. Now, we already see a nice balance. We see 3 for 3, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats who have been supporting the Token Taxonomy Act in the original introduction. And so having that balance, having more and more co-sponsors is significant. But the primary co-sponsor to the Token Taxonomy Act is Darren Soto. And Darren Soto, although he's really taken, again, with Warren Davidson, the two of them, one Democrat, one Republican, working side by side to bring the Token Taxonomy Act to reality. But Darren Soto does not sit on the Financial Services Committee. So in order to elevate the status of the Token Taxonomy Act to get it passed through committee, they need another Democrat that sits on the Financial Services Committee to participate as the primary co-sponsor of the event. So that's really important. And we'll get we'll get a lot more in detail into that. There are some amazing entities and organizations that are very well known that are supporting the Token Taxonomy Act. So it's got some big backing. So this is actually, I would have to say that this is probably the most promising opportunity that the Token Taxonomy has to pass. Now, that being said, what Maxine Waters had requested to be removed as it relates to taxes, in my opinion, is not a good thing, but based on what her statement was, the handle of my cup just popped off. Wonderful. But the statement that Maxine Waters had made regarding tax is that it wasn't in her jurisdiction, trying to figure out exactly what that means, and trying to identify if it's the Ways and Means Committee that needs to oversee a change in tax code, or is the Financial Services Committee truly the right organization to do so? Now, other positive development out of these cups were definitely made in China. I gotta believe. I don't know. It doesn't say. Well, maybe it says on the bottom. I'd have to finish this. But I try not to get any glass products that are made in China. So, no, these probably, maybe this holder was. I don't know. I hope they're not. Because who knows what they're embedded with if these were probably too much lead in the glass if they came out of China. So, so there's two primary committees really that we're going to see the Token Taxonomy Act in, which it is in. One is the Financial Services Committee. The other is the Ways and Means Committee. The question is whether or not, again, is the tax law or the tax rule applicable to be voted through the Financial Services Committee, or do they have to break it out and put it on its own as an addition to, and have two bills submitted? Because really the tax aspect is really significant to make sure that we're able to trade digital asset without every trade being a taxable event. So, and we'll talk about that more later as well. Something that was born out of the Token Taxonomy Act is this new FinTech task force that will also identify and will so later we're going to get into and talk about Token Taxonomy Act. I also want to talk about a project that as a grassroots group, we need to work on and help educate, to Kevin's point, help educate those within Congress that need to better understand the significance of blockchain technology, but more importantly, the significance of digital assets. Why are all the major exchanges adopting digital asset? Chip, man, you're late. You missed the whole thing. Now I got to start over. Okay, guys, we're gonna start from the beginning, just so we can update Chip on everything that we're talking about. So, man, you woke up, dude. It's like 9:20. 9:20. No. So anyhow, Chip, check out Twitter. I put out a little message in the group. You'll see some of my thoughts. And Chip, I'm going to be streaming tonight. We're going to talk specifically about the Token Taxonomy Act on a live stream tonight. Maybe if I can convince Chip, maybe I can get him on the stream as well to talk about TTA, the Token Taxonomy Act. We'll see if he'll be a willing participant to do that. So I think that'll be awesome. But anyhow, Chip, there were 2 streams. I had some technical difficulty in the first one. Cut it out, went up, redid all my routers, and then now I'm back. We've been back now for about an hour. We're coming up on an hour on this stream. Had a little bit of glitch, but Chip, we talked about Brad Sherman a little bit. Not super in depth yet, but I had planned on it. We talked a little bit about the Federal Reserve potentially adopting digital asset. We talked about the importance and significance of Visa buying Earthport. Let's see. Green Grounds, welcome. First time on. Really glad that you made it here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. We have fantastic chats on these early Saturday mornings. And then I stream on Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 p.m. XRP Minute, who's on, comment right above you. If you've been on XRP Minute, you know who he is. If you haven't, he streams live on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 p.m. as well. So this is great. Well, we did talk about Brad Sherman. So we don't need to rehash any of this stuff. By the way, Brad Sherman is in District 30 in California, that is in the San Fernando Valley. So Chip, I'm thinking stream. I'll get it out there. I'm thinking like 8 or 9 o'clock tonight to do the stream on TTA. But we can discuss it offline, and hopefully we can make that happen. So. Anyhow, this was awesome. I'm really glad that we got things moving forward. Chip, make sure you get your double espresso. And if you want to go back to that crypto cafe up in Palm Beach, make sure you have all your XRP gear on, and bring a garbage can that says BTC on it. That might help. So anyhow, so that's it for today. Hopefully, again, I'm going to send out a post here shortly. It's either going to be 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. tonight. We're going to do a show all about Token Taxonomy Act. There is a ton of important information to go through on Token Taxonomy Act and what our next steps have to be as a community, as a grassroots approach to helping, like Kevin was saying, helping to educate those within Congress on the significance of digital assets to the U.S. economy and the global economy. So that's what we're going to talk about. Looking forward to it. Let me see here. Yeah. Come on, guys. If you missed the show, don't ask him to repeat what he already said. Just rewatch it after. That's right. Are you watching? I appreciate that's what happens. So that's it. Again, thank you to all of you guys for coming on. Farshad, thank you for putting in, giving 2 contributions today. Really appreciate that. Hopefully you had a great workout in the gym. Annalise, good seeing you on. Are you watching? Good seeing you on. Everybody that came on. Black Panther, Larry, Kevin, kind of going through B1, Anders, Egbertina. Again, so if you guys have Crypto Bird Dog, WB, as always, Mike Smith, Spanish Fly was on earlier, Gaming Crypto. So just kind of going through the list. A lot of great people on today. Definitely look forward to seeing you guys on this evening. If you're not overseas, if it's not too late, log in. Again, I'm planning on 8 or 9 o'clock. I'll send out a post in a little bit. So until that time, again, look forward to seeing you guys on later. But until that time, keep on hodling your crypto.